Welcome to the Naturally Healthy Pets Podcast. Let's get to it. Welcome to our show this week. This week we're going to have some fun because my guest today, Lisa Spector, has a degree from Juilliard. For those of you who don't know, that's like big league music. My aunt actually went to Juilliard. And for over 15 years, Lisa has been recording research-based classical music to ease canine anxiety. And she and I were talking before we went live, and I didn't realize that she actually started a company that made music discs that I sold in my veterinary clinics from when they first came out back in 2008. So very, very cool. So I've known about music therapy for animals for a long time. Didn't realize this was the person behind that. So how cool. In 2017, NPR called her the pet calming maestro. She's the founder of My Zen Pet and the Doggone Calm Club. Lisa, thanks for being a guest today. I'm kind of excited about this.
It's such an honor to be here, Dr. Judy. I've been such a big fan of yours for so many years, so it's great to be speaking with you.
Well, I was a fan of yours. I just didn't know it. I didn't know it was you. So really cool stuff. So first of all, you're Juilliard trained. So piano, other instruments, classical music?
Just piano, just classical. For people in those days, little did I know my Juilliard degree was going to go to the dogs later on in life.
So how did that happen? Like, how does somebody go from being a classical pianist for human concerts, whatever you were doing, recording, I don't know. But how do you go from that to, I think I'll play the piano for the dog?
Well, sometimes I have found in life the best things happen seemingly by accident at the time, and you look back and they look like divine intervention. And this was one of those things. So 20 years ago, 2003, I owned a music school. And that was what I was doing professionally and all ages. And I've always loved dogs, and I was a volunteer puppy raiser for Guide Dogs for the Blind. So I had a rambunctious 4-month-old puppy, Sanchez, and I brought him to my music school. I joked that he got most of my business, because everyone loved him so much. And I was studying actually for the children. I had a group of 4-year-olds, and I was like, they're so wild when they come in. I need to get them to focus. How do I get them to calm down and get focused? So I started studying different prescriptions of music for people that had been used in neurodevelopmental centers and with autistic children, and to get some handle on my 4-year-olds. And I found that the music I discovered worked on the 4-year-olds. It was fabulous. But I looked over at my rambunctious 4-month-old guide dog puppy, and he was snoozing in no time. I was like, great, it works with children. I'm really onto something. And I started wondering, has this ever been done? I've had dogs all my life. They've always gravitated to the piano, and that's what sparked my interest. And then I looked, and I formed a partnership with a sound researcher and a veterinary neurologist who ran a research study. And that's how it all started.
Wow. And, everybody I talk to who is in the holistic pet space, every single one of them started their company or is doing what they're doing kind of like that. It was like this fortuitous thing that happened, and a light bulb goes on and you go, wow, I should do something with this, which is so incredibly cool. And I will say my mother lives with us, and she's 86, and she has played the piano literally her whole life. And she's a very talented musician, played the clarinet, dancer, like all the arts stuff that, not me. And so she plays the piano every single day. And
so you get to hear her every day.
I love it. Like if I walk in, she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to buy. And I'm like, are you kidding? You could play that piano 8 hours a day and I would just be so happy. And what happens is one of our cats actually lives on the windowsill over my mom's piano. That's just her chosen spot. And so my mom plays and the cat sits on the bench right next to her. And then all the dogs, if they're going crazy, no matter what they're doing, they all gravitate. And if you look over, there's dogs sleeping all around her piano bench. And she plays a lot of hymns and like The Sound of Music, like show tunes and that kind of stuff, but it's all fairly mellow. And so she ends up with all these animals surrounding her. And then I'm usually in some other part of the house just singing in the background where no one can hear me. But it is very true that, our house becomes very zen. So I love that you named this Zen pet. Our house becomes very zen when my mom is playing the piano, and she'll say, "I don't want to bother you while you're working. If I'm writing or doing." I'm like, "Are you kidding? That's like the best background music.
It's therapy.
It's better than it is. It absolutely is therapy." So what? And I know you've got a lot of research behind this. So from a science point of view, what are some of the physiological and psychological benefits to the dog, and we'll talk about cats a little later, but to the nervous system for these animals? Like, do we actually, you said you worked with a neurologist to actually formulate this. Did they look at like brainwave patterns or what was going on, or cortisol levels or blood pressure, heart rate, like any of that kind of stuff to see what kind of changes we see?
So keep in mind, this was way back. The research was done in 2005. And I want to first talk about an original research study, because when this light bulb went off, I wanted to see what else had been done. And in 2001, I believe that was the very first research study by Dr. Deborah Wells, an Irish behaviorist. And she tested music in the shelter environment, testing classical music, human conversation, heavy metal, pop music, and then a control group of no music. And she found that classical music was conducive to calming the dogs in the shelter environment, getting them to limit and reduce and stop their barking, and also just settle and lay down. Now, classical music, here's the challenge, but there's been a lot of progress since then, and good for her. She started this, and her goal was to have more of this. Classical music is an enormously broad term. Most people think classical music is all the same. Classical music is not all the same. It could be a single instrument that has low frequencies that calm the canine nervous system. It could be a single instrument like flute or violin that's high frequencies that charge the canine nervous system. It could be a 140-piece orchestra. It could be Tchaikovsky, the 1812 overture with cannons coming out of the stereo. That would not calm your dog. It's considered classical. So when we did this research study in 2005 with Dr. Susan Wagner, we tested first in the shelter environment 4 kinds of classical music, meaning solo, piano, ensemble, different tempos and varying things. And then we took a smaller study after that had been done with the kind of classical music that was most conducive to calming the dogs in the shelter, and then took that into the home environment, particularly and specifically before July 4th, because so many dogs are so afraid of the fireworks, and tested that. There was no cortisol test. It was behavior testing. So it was, do the dogs stop barking? Do they stop pacing? Do they lay down? And the results were so astoundingly positive that, Susan said to us, like, people are going to think we're lying because it was just so profound. But it didn't surprise me. I've had dogs my whole life, and I know what they gravitated towards. Sure. And since then, there have been maybe a dozen studies since then. So I'm thrilled that there's been more progress. And the music I record now is actually slightly different than the music I recorded that you played, when you had your vet clinics, because it's based on newer research. It's similar, but there are some differences based on newer research.
That is so cool. So have you found differences between different breeds or ages or sizes of dogs? Like me personally, I kind of think of small dogs as maybe being a little more high strung than big dogs, but that's not always the case. But have you found differences in size, breed, age or do they all kind of gravitate toward this?
Somewhat. So yes and no. So I'm going to answer this a little differently than I used to answer this. So dogs that are known to be more sound sensitive, I think of border collies, those are medium to larger dogs. So many of them are, sound sensitive. I used to say that the more sound sensitive, and I want to talk about the difference between sound sensitive and sound phobic, but the dogs that are more sound sensitive, the music, I think, happens faster. The results of the calming behavior happen faster. And I'm now starting to think it's just more obvious because their people are aware that their border collie was sound phobic. So this is my own terminology. I describe sound. If you have a sound phobic dog, you know it. Your dog, fireworks, thunderstorms, they're hiding in the bathtub, they're cowering, they're shaking, they escape the backyard.
The toaster, the microwave beep.
Right. All those things.
The oven timer.
Exactly. If you have a sound sensitive dog, they might just be tense. Their body might tense up. Their ears alert. Their tail goes up. There's more subtle signs. So in observing my sister's, rest in peace dog, when I visited, it was her first dog as an adult. She had no idea this dog was very sound sensitive, and because the signs were so subtle. So I think there's a difference. So it's not a difference in necessarily breed, or definitely not in size, but some breeds are just known to be more sound sensitive. But I have seen labs who are not known to be sensitive. I've seen some who are very sound phobic. So and retrievers, it just really depends.
Yeah. Yeah. I love people who breed hunting dogs and then they get the dog who's scared to death of the sound of the gun.
Yeah,
didn't work out so well.
Right.
Which, makes me wonder, could we put little headphones on the dog with classical music when they're out in the field hunting? Would that, I don't know.
Yeah. Believe me, I've lost sleep over that. Like, how do we get headsets on the dog? How do we get earbuds? Yeah.
All right. Doggy earbuds. There's your next invention. All right. So, what effects, do you think that, noise has on dog health overall, particularly for these phobic or sensitive dogs?
This is probably my favorite topic because I want to empower pet parents to know that there's a lot that you can do. So there are a lot of sounds in your household under your control that you may not be aware of. Dogs' hertz range is twice as high as ours. Cats is twice as high as dogs. So that means that in layman's terms, that means that they hear further away and they also hear higher frequencies. So I'm going to sidetrack. I'm going to answer
silent dog whistles work.
Exactly.
That's what.
Exactly.
Yeah, silent dog whistles. We can't hear them, but they can.
Exactly.
Frequency.
And if you ever, like, someone says, "Oh, I'm going to listen to this, get this music for my dog," I can't hear it because it's too high frequency, but he can. That's not what you want. You want lower frequencies. And I want to come back to that. But in terms of the household sounds, I invite everyone to take a sound survey. Just sit on your sofa, dog in lap, it's fine. And just listen, take a notebook and write down the sounds you're hearing inside and outside. Car sounds, motorcycle, inside, the beeps, the Bluetooth buzzing, which I always have off unless I'm using it, fluorescent lights, pings, like all of these appliances, they drive me nuts that I don't need an alert that the dishwasher's done. Like, I'm fine. I know, So whatever you possibly can, diminish or delete those signs. Newer appliances, you often can shut off the buzzing of the dryer. I have seen dogs. I have people come to me and said, my dog is terrified of going in the garage. I was like, well, what happened in the garage? Oh, the washing machine and the dryer in the garage. And the dog was walking by the dryer and the dryer clothes were dry and the buzz went off. And the dog is all of a sudden thinks the garage is a scary place. So it's really take control of, you can't control everything. You can't control the fireworks that are coming in July 4th, or the thunderstorms, but you can control a lot of things in your environment. So just to be aware of things. So for example, when I had two dogs, Sanchez did not make it as a career as a guide dog. So he actually was career changed and got to be my dog for 14 years. And so when I had Sanchez and my current dog, Gina, I remember getting those electric water kettles. So it boils water for tea and it just pings. There's a little tiny ping at the end. And the first day I got it, they're in their dog beds and they're not sound sensitive dogs, but their ears go up and they're listening. They're trying to find out. Dogs are always trying to find out, do I need to safeguard this house? Do I need to be on alert?
Yeah.
Am I safe? So they're trying to determine that. So then the next day, the water kettle goes off and they don't sit up or jump up, but their ears still go up. The third day, nothing. They're good. They know it's a safe sound. So they're always trying to orient. So really become aware of the sounds and see what you can to diminish or delete them.
Absolutely. And I have a story to tell about that when we come back. So we're going to take a break. But when we come back from our break, Lisa is actually going to play some music that our dogs like. So stay tuned. This might be a good time to bring your dog into the room and see how they react to the music. So stay tuned.
Are you ready to prepare complete and balanced meals at home for your dog with confidence? Let Dr. Judy take the guesswork out of home-prepared food in our Homemade Food for Dogs 101 course. Once you purchase this fun and easy-to-understand course on Dr. Judy U, you will have permanent access and can rewatch it anytime. Podcast listeners get to take advantage of a 25% discount on Homemade Food for Dogs 101 using code PODCAST08 when purchasing on drjudyu.com. Your dog will thank you.
And we're back, and Lisa is going to give us a short concert. I'm really excited. And I've got my puppy next. Actually, there's about 4 dogs in this room, and right now they're all sleeping. So I expect they'll stay sleeping, but let's see what happens. It's all you. Wow. So I'm going to be very zen now for the rest of the afternoon. I feel sorry for the people that I have to interview later today because I am just going to sleep my way through that. That is very relaxing. And I will say 2 of the dogs just continued to snooze. And one of them, about 45 seconds or a minute in, she kind of lifted her head, did a big stretch, and then just went and sunk.
That's what happens.
So amazing.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And I love it. So, I mean, do they become desensitized to it? Like if you, let's say you're going to work and you have a dog with separation anxiety and you say, well, I'm going to turn the music on for the dog, as I'm getting ready to leave and, the anxiety is starting to build. If you left it playing all day, do they stay calm with it all day? Or at some point would they just tune it out?
So in the 20 years I've been doing this, I have heard thousands of stories, and I've never found ones that have become desensitized. I've heard the opposite. I've heard stories of dogs barking for the people to turn on the music. And I have heard, now there is a time and a place to play this. I would not recommend playing it 24/7. So such as my recordings are playing in over 1,500 shelters worldwide. And when I used to manage the shelter project for Through a Dog's Ear, I would get, calls from behaviorists and shelter managers, and, how often do I play the music, how loud, and so forth. You want to play the music whenever there's a possibility of a time of a new stimulus coming into the environment. So you leaving is a new stimulus, but don't play it right before you're leaving, because then your dog builds a conditioning response. Oh my God, it's time to panic. My person's leaving. The music's coming on. You want to get into a ritual. I suggest people play it with their dogs. This music is for both ends of the leash, and I'll tell why in a second. And it is really good to practice a ritual. So you're listening with your dog, and your dog begins an association of all is good with the world. My person is with me. I can chill. And when you leave, don't play it right when you're leaving, and play it. Mix up the patterns, sometimes an hour before, sometimes in half an hour. Mix up your patterns just like you mix up everything else. And so I have never found a dog that gets so conditioned, but I also don't recommend it 24/7. You want times of silence. So in the shelter, I said, play it at night. Sure. It was CDs in those days. So play the CD once and have it shut off. Nothing new is coming in at nighttime. There's no people, there's no feeding time. But at feeding time, with a frenzy, start the music before that. They're not going to sleep during the feeding time, but they're just going to get a little more zen.
Oh man. Okay. Now I gotta try this at feeding time. I only have 4 dogs, but it's amazing how much noise and jumping up and down and like they're so excited about their food, which I get. But man, oh man, if I could zen out feeding time.
Yeah, it's not. They're not going to zen out, but they're just going to take off that a little bit. But
if I could take a little bit of edge off,
a little bit of edge off, yeah.
And they do.
Yeah.
And they do love, maybe I'll just get my mom to play the piano and they'll all go in.
Yeah. I would like to talk about the lower frequencies. If you notice, I was playing with my left hand only.
Yeah. I know, the left hand only. I was very impressed. Do you compose your own music?
I don't compose, but I did arrange that. So there's several reasons I was playing for left hand only. It started with 7 years ago. I fell and I broke my right hand so severely that it was in a cast and I couldn't play I actually was told I would never play piano again with 2 hands. I'm playing full concerts, Rachmaninoff, Chopin list with 2 hands. So it's all good. Right. But when my hand was in a cast, I rearranged this for left hand only. So this is a, movement from Vivaldi. It's the Largo from 4 Seasons. So 4 Seasons is violin. It's high frequency that would charge your dog's nervous system. So piano alone helps, but my left hand is playing lower frequencies. So I rearrange this for left hand only. So if your listeners think about how you intuitively use your voice with your dog, if you're saying good night, good girl, and it's calming time, you're going to just instinctively drop to a lower voice and go into what I call in music terms, long legato speak. Your mother will understand this. If your dog is about to cross the street and you see a car coming, the last thing you want to do is say, Fido here. You're going to go into high frequency pitch. My dog is here. I'm not going to do it, but you're going to go into high frequency, short staccato. Fido here, and high pitch to get alert. So that's why I take out those staccato short sections. Everything is long musical lines. And I don't play all left hand anymore, but I always specialize in bringing out the bass because it really does have an effect on our dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were talking about household noises. About a year and a half ago, my husband, we live back a long lane on a farm, so we can't see cars that are up on the road. And so my husband bought this driveway alarm that has 2 cameras, and as cars go by it beep, and then 10 seconds later, when the car gets to the second one, beep, is really loud. And so our puppy, who's now a little over a year and a half, so, he was 6, 7, 8 months old, his behavior got so bad.
Yeah.
And so he started alerting and being like in a frenzy. And then, so he'd hear this and he would instantly start racing around the house, barking at the top of his lungs, crazy. And that went from that to when the person would come in the house, because he was already in such a hyper state, then he would attack the person coming in. Like, I have to protect you from this, whatever, just set off this alarm system. And so it's been unplugged now. I actually took the dog to puppy training classes and actually figured out a lot of where his anxiety and crazy and aggression, he's a little 10-pound dog. He's just like, I'm going to take everybody out. And we figured out where it was from. Like, because when that alarm would go off, we would also be instantly at alert, looking out the window, run to the window and look out and see who's coming. Is this friend or foe? And so it is so true. Like, bad behaviors in our pets can start with something that we don't even associate.
We don't even know where it comes from. The washing machine, the dryer.
Right.
Yeah.
And once we figured out where, like, he doesn't care about the dishwasher beep. He doesn't care about the dryer, but like, none of that stuff sets him off. The oven. And you're right. Like, now I'm like, I'm going to go home and silence everything. It is amazing how many things beep and buzz all day and we don't even pay attention to it. But that driveway buzzer was loud and it totally changed his behavior, not for the better. And it just escalated into, I really thought, like, I'm going to have to send this dog back to the breeder. I cannot deal with this. Thank God we found a really good trainer and I got to understand where the trainer didn't figure out it came from the driveway noise, but just by putting everything together. And before we only have a couple minutes left. I can't believe this went so fast. I want to talk about music for cats because cats are totally different. So what are the frequencies and what like, I've heard cat music. It's so
when I was creating music for cats, it was based on research by Dr. Tony Buffington, I think in Ohio. And just in generality, dogs, someone comes to the door and is like, this is the most exciting thing that ever happened to me. And cats, someone come to the door, oh my God, I need to go hide under my bed, because they don't like anything that's not predictable at all. So, dogs like their patterns, but cats like, this total 100% consistency. So the recordings I made in the past with Her Cat's Hair were based on that research of providing that consistency through repetition, basically. Through a pattern, an anchoring thing that kept coming back. I'm now really, for right now anyhow, just focused on dogs in my new company.
And the cat music, is that higher frequency? Because you said the dogs, we want the low frequencies. Are the cats a higher frequency?
No, because the cats, same thing. The cats also will, they can hear higher frequency, but that's not a good thing. That still charges their nervous system.
So that's still going to be charging.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just a lot of repetition. Because like, when I've listened to cat music, it sounds very squeaky.
Yeah, this is not cat. It's for cats.
It literally sounds like cats wailing.
This is piano music for cats. It's not cat sounds for cats. Yeah. Yeah, because I always like to, unless you have an extremely well-trained, if it's a dog, extremely well-trained border collie, you're going to be turning on you're going to be saying, Alexa, play whatever, turning on your stereo, whatever it is. So unless you train your cat or dog to do that. So you're in control. So I want the people to really enjoy the music as well.
And so you said you do recordings and I think you do some live events for people. And we kind of talked about doing one, and it's not working out right now, but I'm hoping later on we can do it.
Yeah.
Where we do a live event and people can tune in with their dogs and see how they respond. If someone wanted recordings of your music, are they on YouTube? Are they on discs? Are they something we can download?
So there's several ways. They're on, whatever. I don't print CDs anymore. People don't have CD players. So
I don't even have a CD player.
So they're in all the streaming channels. If you go to myzenpet.com/tips, then I will send you the link to where it's streaming. It's also on the homepage of My Zen Pet, but with the tips, you get, because it's not just the music, it's how to use the music, when to use the music, the volume to use the music. So you get tips of how to use the music for separation anxiety, sound phobias, excessive barking, hyperactivity, all the things. So those tips will really be helpful for you to really build the correct conditioning response that you want with that music. And then I also have, if you don't stream at myzenpet.com, you'll see I have Doggone Calm Forever. So people who don't stream, I have another online program where And the forever became a request around listeners who wanted to play their music, obviously, when they were gone and have more and more music. So there's more available in the forever list. There's volumes of that, of Doggone Calm. Volume 1 is on streaming. When this airs, it'll be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of Doggone Calm on Doggone Calm forever.
Wow. Doggone Calm Club. I love it. I love it. And I think the tips is great because, I mean, I have so many more questions and we don't have time for them, unfortunately, but do I have to condition my dog to this? Do I use it as a training tool, or do I just turn it on and walk away? And I'm sure all that information is available at myzenpet.com/tips. And so cool what you're doing. First of all, I love music. I would have loved to have been a musician. It's just not me. It's in my genes. It's just not me. And I was a musician at one point.
Well, I'm glad you get to hear your mom play,
though.
So that's everything.
Yeah. Me too. So I got to figure out, I can only play right-handed. I got to figure out the left. So I'm the opposite of you. I'm
We'll do a duet.
But thank you very much for all you do. There you go. And thank you for agreeing to come on. Thank you for your concert. It was awesome. And, I'm hoping everybody around here is going to sleep well after you.
My pleasure. It was such an honor. Thank you so much, Dr. Judy.
Thanks for listening to another great Naturally Healthy Pets episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for some helpful links. And if you enjoy the show, please be sure to follow and listen for free on your favorite podcast app. We value your feedback and would love to hear from you on how we're doing. Visit drjudymorgan.com for healthy product recommendations, comprehensive courses, upcoming events, and other fantastic resources. Until next time, keep giving your pet the vibrant life they deserve.
The purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform. It is no substitute for professional care by a veterinarian, licensed nutritionist, or other qualified professional. You're encouraged to do your own research and should not rely on this information as professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Dr. Judy and her guests express their own views, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets neither endorses or opposes any particular view discussed here.